Hey everyone, what's good? Welcome back to episode 2 of Vasquez Fields, our new PS5 Planet Coaster build series. Thanks for tuning in. In case you missed our first episode, I encourage you to go back and check that one out. We had a grand old time. We built out a full surrounding neighborhood, crafted a park layout, and plopped down a full entrance plaza. If you're new to the channel and like what you see, feel free to smash that like button, maybe the subscribe button, maybe the little bell guy, so you can stay up to date as new episodes get released. It's all free, and it helps us out a ton, so I'd super appreciate it. As I mentioned in the previous episode, this series is to showcase how the park has been coming along. I'll be going through the steps on what was done to design the park, but I won't be showing too much of the actual building. For that, you can hop on over to twitch.tv/Ty11s, and over there, you can hang out with me in the community and actually watch Vasquez Fields get built live and in real time. But anyways, here we are in episode 2, and I will say up front this time, we will finish this episode, and there will still not be a ride in the park. I know. I hope that's okay. Is that okay? Will you be alright? Good. Now that we have that out of the way, I will say that the next episode will feature our first flat ride for the park. It's got a sweet ride skin, it's a thrill ride, it's a whole vibe. Nothing wrong with it in my book. Do not be hating on the flat rides, because there's room for them to be really cool. And then, only a couple of episodes away is our first roller coaster. It's coming. That's the sexy stuff I know y'all come lurking for, so stay tuned. Today, we will be building out the early stages of our main street. Now, a question you may have is, well, Ty, why Main Street? And how do you plan out what gets placed where? Do you plan out the entire park ahead of time since you're working in a limited space? It may come as a surprise, but no, not at all. I don't really plan anything out this early on. I like to just get building and get the creative juices flowing and see what comes to life. Later on, when the park is beginning to have character and spaces are filling up, then I might plan for some of the next moves, but for the most part, I'm winging it and just cleaning up the mess afterwards. As for what will be on our main street, though, I do have some ideas. A gift shop is key, and we'll likely put that near the front of the park somewhere, since there's that old adage about making sure guests are hitting the gift shop on the way in and on the way out. Then we'll get some food and drink up in here. That's probably all we'll get to in this episode, is just a few shops. Towards the end of our main street is where the flat rides will start to pop up. And don't forget, we're working with a theme here, a Cowboys vs. Aliens theme at that, so a little Western, a little sci-fi. Hang tight a few episodes for the sci-fi part, but the Western theme we're going to get pretty heavy-handed on today. Our main street will be pretty much an Old West town, and I will use a lot of reference photos for that. I will say, though, that the plan for the end of Main Street is for where our sci-fi theme will start to pop up, and then it will get more heavy-handed as you go deeper into the park. So why don't we start kind of simple? I carved out this little space here at the front of our Main Street, knowing that I wanted to put a little set piece for guests to come into when they arrive. So let's knock that out as our sort of warm-up in our first venture into the Western theme. Very simple stuff here, but I do suggest this method for anyone that's dealing with builder's block or just wanting to get in the groove of a new theme or a setting that you're working with. All I did here was craft a little scene out of clutter, and in doing so, was able to navigate through all the Western pieces the game has, and I became acquainted with them so that even if I don't include them in this little spot here, I have a memory bank of what else the game has, and I can come back to those pieces later. For the most part, this is just a bunch of barrels and crates, but sometimes you can manipulate the items to make them into something they may not be intended for. Like this batch of hay here, it's actually an archery target. I just flipped it around and stuck it in the ground because I just wanted the batch of hay, but that's not a separate piece in the game. Another thing I suggest is utilizing the scenery tab. You can come in here, filter by a scenery group, and then find some scenes you like. And maybe you just plop them down and that's that. But what I like to do is tear them apart take the pieces I like, lose the pieces I don't like. And I talked about it in the previous episode, but you can also use the Frontier Workshop for this as well. Check out what other players have built and see what inspires you, or just use what they've built in your own park. It's a big community of sharing work, so get in on it. Take some stuff, share some stuff that you've made. It's one of the best parts about Planet Coaster. Heck, if you have great little scenery pieces you want to share with this park, by all means. But now that we've gotten our warm-up done, let's get on to the real stuff, huh? We're getting into building some shops and seeing how we want to start to lay out our main street. Since we're building strictly in the Western theme, I say why don't we venture into finding some references to work off of. I know some of my favorite Western worlds are in the Red Dead Redemption series, so I'll probably jump into that game, or I'll do a whole bunch of Google searches, browsing Google Images or artstation.com, and looking at environment art from that beautiful game, and seeing if I can just recreate it entirely here in Blanco. And specifically, the town of Saint Denis in Red Dead seems to have a vibe that I'd love to try and get going for our main street, so let's see what we can make from that. Ooh boy, okay. This might just be 2 shops, but there's a lot to talk about here, so let's see how concise I can keep this, huh? It's 2 shops, one just a Momento gift shop, one Mexelente, like quick grab food spot. But this is what can result from detailing and decorating to the max, using reference photos, sticking to a theme. Reference photos of Saint Denis showed that buildings would be lined up in a row, with little to no space between them and only tight alleys blocked off by fencing or brick walls being what separates each one. But at the same time, each had their own style and character, and that's what I went for here. This is really just the result of building some fairly simple buildings, just squares essentially, and then detailing them out with as much of the Western theme assets as I could seem to fit. For each shop I did some minimal interior decor, just giving the inside some more life with different color walls along with some shelves and other random items just laying around. You have to think about the shops you visit at real theme parks and how they're not usually just plain restaurant-styled stores, but instead usually incorporate the style and design of the park into their stores. I had a lot of variety of signage, flowers, balconies, clutter, and lighting to each building, sticking to the idea that each one would have its own unique style. A lot of path coverings are hiding where the guests can actually walk, as I didn't want them to walk through walls in between the shops or anything. And then both buildings have some additional scenery on the sides of them, as those will be areas that are visible depending on where you stand in the park. An old adage of theme park building is that anything you can see should be decked out in decor so that your guests aren't ever remembering they're in a park and instead feel like they've been transported to a different world. As for the rear of each building though, we've got some minor backstage stuff. I added the sliding door for deliveries to come in and out of, and we can sell that it could be used for both shops through some additional access that's in the back of each shop. And then just some tarmac paint, vents, and a dumpster for that lovely touch of realism. I've also started to imagine the rest of Main Street now and put down more path coverings to serve as sidewalks. And you may be like, what's that random palette about? Well, let me tell you. In researching the design of Saint Denis, I discovered that you'll find these planks throughout the area in the game, as it was a common thing during those times to have these placed around sidewalks so that women exiting carriages and onto the sidewalks wouldn't have to step into the mud and dirt. So I thought including some of the historical realism there into our park was a nice touch. There's a lot going on in just these 2 shops though. The combination of the 2 is about 370 pieces and about 26 different buildings. So if you have any questions on what's going on here, feel free to ask. Plenty of work has already been done here, but before we wrap up on this episode, let's just get a little bit more going on in our park. We have the other side of Main Street to deal with, right? You'll see that I already put down a path over here, as I have an idea for a building that I want guests to be able to walk all the way through. So let's take a look at how that shakes out. If you thought my lovely pathing idea was leading to our park's first restroom, then you were right. Congrats. At first glance, you would think, Oh, a bathroom. Not as much detail as those shops. This must have been fairly simple for you. But because I thought it would be incredibly cool to get fancy and have the building follow the curve of the path, that definitely proved to not be the case. Creating separate buildings to then line them all up and achieve something like this is a great way to craft some variety in your parks and to have even more realism rather than just have a bunch of cube buildings. You can have a variety of different shapes to your buildings. But this game does want you to work on their grid system as much as you can. So let me just say that by doing this, I ended up making it so that the roof took me way too long to do. Once the building was made though, then yes, it did become sort of simple. Maybe just because I wanted to move on from building a place for people to go to the bathroom. But you can see I did a decent amount of exterior design. The interior design though, still pretty bare. A minor spoiler alert, but I did later on return to here and deck out the interior. That won't be included in this episode, but if you're itching to know, remember, you can come hang out on the Twitch, and if you ask me over there to show it off, it would be my absolute pleasure to give you a tour of our sh**ers. Overall though, I am very pleased with this build, and I'm happy to have achieved the path-to-path connection that the building serves. But if you thought I was going to finish off an episode with toilets, then actually you'd be making a pretty fair assumption about me probably. But at least this time, you would be wrong. Build up some of the extra space over on this side as well with a mini plaza. And all that's here at the moment are our ATMs, but this was also inspired by the market in Saint Denis of Red Dead Redemption 2. Designing a little market area and getting creative with the string lights that are in the game resulted in this cool little extra area that guests can just pass through. Something I'll point out here that I've been purposely avoiding is our lighting design. The game has great lighting, but it needs some help to achieve some more realism and to help spread the light a little bit more. I feel like it's a weaker area of my game and I could use some more practice on it, but borrowing from other creators' approaches I'm going with it. I was able to get the idea from them to bury area lights under the ground to supplement that lighting we have going on over here. This helps to just have the light spread over the area better and avoid big patches of darkness when the sun goes down. So I think that's where we'll wrap up this episode. Our main street is coming along pretty well with 2 shops, a bathroom, and a mini plaza. And you can see that even though this seems like so very little, it already is starting to feel like a real theme park. On our next episode, we'll showcase our first flat ride along with some other shops as we work our way down Main Street some more here. Thanks so much for tuning in, and don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. We're brand new to the Planet Coaster community, both on Twitch and YouTube, but already I feel so welcomed by everyone that has built it up over the past 6 years. Our personal community is already on the rise, and I can't wait for you all to join in on the fun, both here on YouTube, but also over on Twitch. So until next time, y'all, I'm Tyler Evans. You all take it easy, and I will see ya on the next one.